the principle of a work-life balance and health and wellness being part of that.
Yeah.
How do you, and here's what we're all going through: screen time, ever accelerating rate of change, AI, crypto, property, right? And whatever we don't even know is coming down the pipe. What's next? You got to keep an eye on that. And at the same time, in real time, real life, you got to slow down.
Focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
How are you, buddy? How's everything?
Yeah, great. It's nice to see you.
Well, it's nice to see you too, man. It's nice to see you. So, Mr. Kin, is he still in Thailand?
He is indeed. So, due to the time zones, you got me today, but it's going to work. Trust me.
Okay. All right. Okay. So he's not coming on today then?
No, he is not going to be here today.
He's not going to be with us. Okay. All right. That's okay. No worries, man. No worries. I got a lot of great stuff for you, man. So we're going to have an incredible conversation. And just so you know, I'm going to do a separate intro, especially now. I'll do it like a separate intro just on you. So I'll be a little bit more detailed just for you. And then, so as this podcast starts, it'll just kind of flow right in. Right. I'll do the intro with all of your info, who you are, where you came from in 30 seconds. And then it'll just cut right into our conversation. So, all right. So, Mr.
A quick question for you. Two things. Yeah. Is this audio only or is it video as well?
No, it's video, man. We got to see your beautiful face, dude. Come on, man. I mean, let's go, man.
No problem.
We do this for all the women in America, okay? So we do it for the women. We want to bring them the best of London beat, okay? So this is the best of London beat. So
there it is, man. A second question is just describe who your ideal listener is. What's the avatar?
Well, we're entrepreneurs, man. Small business owners. You know, I've been in business for almost 30 years now. I own a financial services company. I think you might remember when Ken interviewed me. But we're a bunch of small entrepreneurs.
Okay, so small entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Mostly US based or
mostly US based. Yeah, but we actually have a decent little following internationally. I mean, a lot of Canada, but also starting to go with Europe, and I'm getting a big following. I mean, my last post, one of my last posts, I got 290,000 views on Instagram. So it was a great little pop. And but I noticed like all the insights, it was like all over the world, man. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
So tell me, Will, how did you and metal connect, man? You're a metal man. How did that all happen?
I am indeed a metal man, and I should just explain for people listening, watching this for the first time, it's nothing to do with heavy metal, and it's actually nothing to do with metal. There's no iron, aluminum, nothing. No, it's actually an acronym, and we are a men's organization, and the acronym is short for media, entertainment, technology, arts, and leadership. That's where we started. 𝐇𝐎𝐿, my partner in crime, who is the host here at the Metal HQ, and I'm a co-host, which is why I'm in the Metal HQ control room at the moment, which is what you can see here. Ken started this in 2001, I think, with the focus on media, entertainment, technology, arts, and leadership. And over the last 20, whatever the number is, 3 years, it's broadened to guys from many different backgrounds. And so we now have media entertainment, but we also have physicians, we have space guys who are involved in space, we have a lot of people in finance, movie business finance, a ton of entrepreneurs. We're all kind of, one of the things I like to say at the meetings is we are kind of unemployable in any traditional sense, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I was employed for 15 months. I sold one of my companies called Rocket Network, and I sold it to Avid, we had a networking system for recording studios, and we sold the company to Avid in 2003, and as part of the deal, I had to work at Avid for 18 months. Oh my God, what a challenge that was.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, there's no way I could ever be an employee again. I mean, I would be the worst employee ever.
Yeah, I tell it, absolutely, don't employ me. However, if there's an opportunity, what would work, and I say this to folks sometimes, is I will work for zero pay in a division which you're starting. I'm talking now to a major label, a major company. I have a product that I believe in, or you have a product I believe in. I will work for zero pay. I want a piece of the upside. I will run my entire P&L myself. You guys will fund it to this agreed level. And now we're talking.
Yeah.
And then I'll have an earn out or an earn in, or we'll figure something out. And in that case, I'm my own boss again. Well, kind of, but that would be the only thing I would kind of consider.
No, it's so cool talking to entrepreneurs because we're just different. We think differently.
Right.
We're always thinking of, like, how can we grow something? How can we build something? How can we create something? How can we serve other people? And yes, of course we want to get paid. Of course we want this to be a profitable thing. But we also understand that sometimes things aren't profitable. I've invested in startups before, and they've gone belly up, and I've made no money, and I've lost money before. And so, or I've lost time, or I've lost energy. But those type of things you got to be prepared for when you're an entrepreneur. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I've done 8. I've been around the entrepreneur dance 8 formally times, and metal is my 8th. And I kind of look at it. I had a good exit a couple of times. I did okay a couple of times. I lost my shirt the rest of the times. And here I am still standing.
Yeah. Well, you made it, man.
How did I get involved in metal? And the answer is in 2009, I got introduced to 𝐄𝐍𝐉𝐎𝐾 by a existing metal man called 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒, who works in the film product placement business here in LA. And he brought me to metal, and I met all these amazing guys who were from very different backgrounds. The reason why metal is important for guys like us, it's like I tell people it's like a sort of an edgier version of TED for successful guys, right? Right. And you've been a guest speaker, so edgier version of TED for successful guys. And what matters to us as we get over 40 is, most of our guys are over 40. We have some younger guys, but you've generally not achieved enough when you're under 40 to be in the kind of company of these guys. What matters is you meet guys who are as successful as you are, but in a totally different field. Right. So what we tend to do, let's say someone is a lawyer, and what will happen is they'll know lots of other lawyers, and you will know maybe your kids' friends' parents, right? Which is kind of random. And lots of lawyers. Lawyers tend to know a lot of physicians, for some reason. Go figure. So you'll know lawyers and physicians, but you never get to know guys like you, Daniel. You never meet guys like me. And so the value of developing strong, long-term, lifetime relationships with guys from really different backgrounds, as I said, astronaut, literally, F-16 pilot, literally, career physicians, actors, inventors, guys, it's a super interesting background. But what we have discovered is we all have principles in common as successful guys. That is what's really interesting. And that's why the power of this group is so important to all of us.
Now, it's just guys, obviously, right?
Yeah. Metal.men. That's the website.
Metal Men.
It tells you everything you need to know. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just guys. So have there ever been any challenges with that? I mean, has a woman ever come by and said, "Oh, that's sexist"? You just have a men's group over there. I mean, has that ever happened to you guys before?
No. The reason why is that just like women need to be in women's groups, right? It's exactly the same thing. We men are better men in the greater world when we're in regular contact with other heart-centered men from many different backgrounds. So Metal, we're an independent organization. We're not part of any political group. We're not part of any a financial group. We're not part of any media group. We're a completely independent group of guys. And the key is heart-centered. And so there is a culture within the Metal Men community of kindness and heart-centeredness and sharing. And it's like a rising tide floats all boats, you know. So you've been a guest speaker at one of our meetings. If you needed introducing to anybody in any capacity, you could reach out to any metal guy and we'd be like, yeah, Daniel, we got you. Who do you need to talk to?
Yeah. No, it's incredible. I mean, I was introduced through Shaheen, and I was, of course, I've developed a lot of other relationships. By the way, I've actually spoke a few times so far, but I just, it is the most amazing group of men, and I attended one of the big events last year, and I just like, it's one of those things where you got to experience it. I mean, for anybody that's wondering about it, you just got to experience it, because it does feel good. And, you guys talk a lot about like masculine intelligence, so what does that mean to you?
I just got this yesterday, so I'm kind of proud of it. This is the book. We have a book called Masculine Intelligence, which is 8 core principles of the world's most successful men. And for anybody who's listening on the radio or listening to this podcast, I'm holding up a huge poster of the book right now.
That's a big, I was going to say, that's a big book, man. That's a huge book. It's a long read, so.
I'll explain a little bit about what it's about.
Yeah, please explain it. Yeah, talk about
the internet is full of this. 7 vital steps to make your garden grow. 24 things you didn't know about investing in crypto, right? There's always these things. And nearly all of them are just made up nonsense just to get someone to buy something. So I was determined. Ken and I sat down and we asked this question. What do successful men, and we have a representative group of 800 guys here, what do the successful men, what do we have in common? What do I have in common with you, Daniel? We come from super different backgrounds, but we have to have a ton of things in common. So we did a research project with 450 guys, and it was an open-ended qual survey. It was really involved. There was 7 pages of questions initially. From that, we then distilled that down to focus groups, more and more questions to ask this question. What do we have in common? What did your success? How did you get successful? What do you attribute your success to? And because I just had a sense there's got to be things. I mean, curiosity was an obvious thing, right? And so after the beauty of AI and the way that the ChatGPT, the Claude tools and so on work means that now you can look at qualitative data and you can turn it into quant data because it's possible. So we found that there are 8 core principles that all successful men, and by extension, all successful people, not just men, have created the core success in their life. The book is the first volume of a series of interviews we've done with metal men. This book has Nolan Bushnell, Chris Voss, a whole bunch of Chris Voss, a whole bunch of really interesting guys are interviewed in this. And so the first one, I'll just walk you through them. The first one is curiosity. Now, I've met you before, so I know you're a really curious guy. You're like, what's that? Right? Let's say you get on a plane, Daniel, and your phone battery's died and you're just sitting there. What are you going to do? You're either going to talk to the person next to you or you're going to look at the in-flight magazine and you're going to be like, oh, that's weird. I didn't know about that thing. You're curious. I got to look that up. What? Really?
Right.
There's the link between, I don't know, bats, malaria, cows, and something else. I don't know, just some interesting thing. You're like, that is so interesting. And now the next thing is we're creative. Of course, let's say now we read something in an aircraft magazine, in an airline magazine. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that. That makes me creative. I'm like, I wonder if there's a business in creating a little widget doof or something or another, right? To solve a problem that I just didn't know about.
Or how can this help my current business. You're always looking at, right? Whatever
right.
you're doing, you're always trying to be,
right.
I mean, I just put together a full-on business plan for 2025, and I was creative about it, and I was trying to think of different ideas and different, angles, and then I shared it with my team right now. And all the people on Wealth on the Beach Club. And so, yeah, I mean, we are creative creatures, man.
Right. So you've got to be curious. You got to be creative. The third thing is integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you've got to have integrity in your life, which is a critical thing. And then you've got to understand about not giving up.
But what about, let's stop right there though, Will. I mean, what about like when people say, okay, somebody like a Donald Trump, right? Now, I mean, I think everybody knows that watches me. I'm a Trump guy. I mean, I voted for Trump. But what about when those people say, well, how did he become successful? And he doesn't necessarily, especially in the early days. I mean, looking at his past, maybe he didn't have that much integrity. So how does that get, how does that get,
it's a really good point.
Yeah,
it's a really good point.
How does that happen?
We have a golden rule in Metal internally, which is we never talk politics.
Yeah.
By the way, just being clear about it.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it becomes a safe space to talk about. Why? Because politics
but
is
I'm just saying the character, without putting the politics aside, like a human. He's a human that became successful, but he maybe didn't have all the most integrity early on, right?
Absolutely. And we all know people who are like that. But having integrity as for most people, it's a personal decision how you live your life. And what it means as an entrepreneur is making sure that you deliver on your promises.
Right.
Okay. If you borrow money,
there you go.
Deal with it. You can't make a payment, call them up. Right. It's about repeat business. If you don't have integrity, you will not get repeat business. And so I'm kind of generalizing a little bit here.
Yeah.
But if you run a restaurant and you're not making great food, you'll have people come in one time. Right. So
I think how we could maybe walk through that. You look at whether it be him or some other successful billionaire or whatever, you kind of go, okay, well, at least during their career, they had to do what they said they were going to do. Otherwise, they never would have got business. And so I think at some point, just kind of generalizing it to everybody that's watching, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's integrity means you got to do what you say you're going to do. You got to be a person of your word, follow through on your promises to the people that you're doing business with. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a key piece of it. Yeah. Follow through. The next one is resilience. You've got to be resilient. You got to get back on the horse. One of the guys in this book, Dr. Michael Bruce, who's the sleep doctor, we asked him about resilience, and his, we know him as the guy you see on network TV all the time as the specialist in sleep doctors, but he had a pretty rocky road to get there. And I said to him, how do you deal with resilience? He goes, I don't get off the horse. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, the horse goes down. And I'm like, get up, you damn horse. He was swearing like a trooper. Like, get up a horse. He makes, come on, Neddy, get up. And so he never gets off the horse. Now, I asked him, well, what happens if you're trying, because startups are really experiments in business that, if the business model works and you have a product, market fit, you got something that goes. If you don't, it's not a failed experiment. It's just an experiment that didn't work. And he said, you got to know when to actually not engage. You've got to know when to just go, oh yeah, that's not going to work. That's a really important thing. The next principle is interesting, which is highly relevant to you and your group, which is financial literacy. But that doesn't mean you've got to be a super whiz on the stock market or, just selling shorts on the or dealing with crypto. It just means you got to know about how it works. Get money, keep money, grow money. Right. You got to understand how it works.
It really is. It really does come down, Will, to knowing how money works and also organizing it. I think financial organization is so key, because especially if you're starting a business. I mean, if you run out of money, you run out of, runway for your plane to take off, right? I mean, you never get the plane to take off if you run out of money. And so, and I think, it is kind of like a super devastating thing for a lot of Americans. I mean, most Americans don't have $400 to spare. Right. This is how devastated it is for so many people in the world, because there's such a lack of financial literacy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned a lot of these lessons the hard way, really, later on.
Well, you're a creative dude. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of creative people out there that, they and you probably know a lot of them, right? I mean, they were working in a band, and they never saw their mony, and they were just playing and playing and playing. And next thing you know, they wake up 20 years later and they go, what happened to all that money? I don't know. Is that, you ever see that?
Oh yeah.
What happened to all the money, right? Where did it go?
Yeah.
So I got lucky. Right? I got lucky though, Will. I got really super lucky. I was 21 years old. I went into business, and all my mentors were financial expert guys. So I learned very early on to organize my money. Now, with that said, I guarantee you, on the road, you as playing for London Beat, I mean, you had a lot more fun than I did. Just let's be honest. You had way more fun. I was able to get financially independent at a young age, but that was, less fun though, less fun. So let's be honest, right?
Yeah. Well, successful artists tend to be sober, and I was indeed sober for 22 years.
Okay. Good.
So there wasn't as much fun as you thought.
Okay, all right. I
love
that.
The sixth principle is brotherhood. And again, we're a men's group, so I'm talking about brotherhood. But again, this is true for anyone. And what this is about is you need to have a group of people around you, in our case, brothers, who are intelligent and have had a lot of life experience. You need a mentor who's an older brother who can be like, hey, are you sure you want to marry that girl? She's beautiful, but you don't need to marry her yet. Just
Right.
Then the seventh one is I know you do this a lot, which is professional development. You got to have a mentor. You got to have coaches. You got to be learning, constantly learning. It's a moving landscape, life and business all the time. Right. You got to keep your eye on having core professional skills.
I tell people all the time. I mean, I was, addicted to self-improvement. I mean, I think in a good way. I was addicted most of my life. I read countless books. I've attended countless seminars and groups and traveled all over around the world just to try to get better. And so, but looking back, I have no regrets about that, because my life has been so much more consistent, and I think well-read because of that, of all those mentors.
What about there's a difference between professional development and personal development, right? Tony Robbins,
right?
Personal development. I'm just using him as a good, well-known example,
right?
Maybe Joe Polish and his world of business experts being professional development.
Correct.
In your own world, what is your sort of balance between going, getting your personal self sorted out and learning about professional skills?
Well, my whole, I followed Anthony Robbins. He's probably one of my biggest mentors, at least my top 5 mentors of my life is Tony Robbins. So I did spend a lot of time, growing in that direction. But I had some really good, very close mentors, billionaire mentors, millionaire, multi-millionaire mentors that were very close to me. So I think I spent probably 80% more towards those personal mentors.
Yeah. Now, that's interesting, because we found the same thing with the metal community. It's tended to be about 25% personal, 75% professional.
Right.
And of course, as you get older, the personal development becomes less. You get more baked into who you are, right? By the
Right,
time
right.
40s or 50s or 60s. Never, you can never, old dog and a new trick. It's always a thing.
It's hard. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the last principle that we found was one that really surprised Ken and I when we got the data back, and that is the principle of a work-life balance and health and wellness being part of that.
Yeah.
How do you, and here's what we're all going through: screen time, ever accelerating rate of change, AI, crypto, property, right? And whatever we don't even know is coming down the pipe. What's next? You got to keep an eye on that. And at the same time, in real time, real life, you got to slow down.
Yeah.
You got to sit on that beautiful beach behind you. You got to just relax. You want to drop in at dinner with your friends, with your kids. They're only 9 years old one time. Just listen to, and when they're teenagers, they're just experimental humans, and you are unfortunately the test bed where they're experimenting with things that you can't say later on in life.
Sure, for sure.
Right? Oh my God. So we have this balance to find of diving into the business and diving into a project and really, putting all your energy into it and knowing that you can't sustain that. It will actually literally kill you. So there's this balance of how do you do that? You're starting a company, you're still doing the books at 10 o'clock at night. God, good loss. But you can't keep doing that. So you've got to know when can you leave the baby, the business baby, with a little monitor on it so that you can just get some time of your own. But in your own life, how have you dealt with that when you've got a business up and running? How did you figure out, I can just step back a minute and take a breath?
I think if we were to summarize my book, Wealth on the Beach, one of the biggest takeaways, if somebody's really, really reading it, one of the big takeaways is duplication. So I spent a lot of time early on. So I would be working really, really hard, making sales, recruiting, learning leadership, teaching, training, coaching. And then I would go home at night and then I would spend time with my son. And because he was little at the time, I would spend a ton of time, or even during the daytime when I wasn't on appointments. But I would spend a lot of time after that time. I would spend a lot of time writing down everything that I did right. So when I would make a sale, I would go home and write a script of exactly what I said, how I overcame the objections, all this stuff. Then what I did was I started putting them into scripts, put it in eventually in a process book. And then I started putting them onto, and this is early days. This was the end of the 90s. And I started putting everything on CD and DVD and started recording, and then eventually websites, and then eventually YouTube and all this stuff. So my whole career has been about, okay, this is how you do it, but here's the copy, right? Here's the video, here's the CD, here's the manual, here's the whatever. So everybody that came in my business, they got recruited, and we were recruiting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every month. And every time we would recruit somebody, we would put them into a system. It's crazy because I learned this through Disneyland. So I was a float driver at between 16 and 19 years old
Really?
in the parades at Disneyland. Yeah. And so I remember showing up to Disneyland, and then they sat you in a class. Your first, week or whatever you're working for Disneyland, they sat you in a class, and all they did was they just taught you over and over and over all their core fundamentals, videos over and over and over. Just they wanted to indoctrinate you with their philosophy. And that's exactly what happened with me. Is I got indoctrinated into the philosophy of I was indoctrinating our people into our philosophy of our business. And then all of a sudden I woke up 7 years later, and I was free. I didn't have any, I didn't have to do a whole lot because I was free, and it was awesome. It was incredible.
So what I'm hearing you say is that iteratively creating process that you can then define. How do you in the process?
We're going to pause the video real quick. I'm so sorry. I got to remember
So what I'm hearing you say is that you have figured out, and your sort of your unique selling points, your genius was figuring out what the process is iteratively, then using that to then create training materials, to create scope of work documents to start. Now, my question to you then is that works in the short to medium term, but business changes constantly vis-a-vis our earlier conversation.
Absolutely.
So what process do you have in place for the training materials to be automatically updated and tested? Do you have like a loop within it now at scale where things are,
to be, very transparent and honest, our business, it tends, at least our business, because I don't know if it's just that we're a sales organization and financial services and we do insurance and investments. A lot of that stuff doesn't change. Now, some of the change and some of the things, but kind of the process of me recruiting somebody stayed relatively the same. Now, granted, we've had to add on layers when social media, brand, we're teaching about brands now. We're teaching about, how to more effectively recruit people online. And, there's definitely layers that we've added through the years, but nothing automated where it automatically updated itself to, we just come out with different training materials. I do a Wealth on the Beach Club every Wednesday morning. And so we're constantly putting out videos that are teaching new things every single week.
Yeah. It's an interesting sort of, as I got older, I got really interested in what are the core truths. I mean, hence the 8 principles of this book, because there are general principles that are true. And sometimes a generation forgets them and then a new generation has to relearn them.
For sure.
And this whole, I mean, if you think about franchising a restaurant, McDonald's, if you buy a McDonald's franchise, literally to the tiniest period in the whole thing, it'll tell you exactly how to run a successful restaurant. And if you deviate, it won't work.
That's it. And by the way, that model, Will, is really what drove my thinking, the Disneyland, the McDonald's, the franchising, things like that. I just kept thinking in my mind, like, if I duplicate this thing, nobody's going to need me. Eventually Ray Kroc didn't have to work because he had enough, locations and all that. And so now we have 57 locations that are independently run and they don't really need me anymore, which is kind of good and bad. It's like, you're all these, your best friends forever. They don't need you anymore. They're off doing their own things. And, now they're like, we don't need Daniel anymore, So it's a little bittersweet, there is a little bit of, but again, that was always my intention, is to do that, so what was it like? I'm curious for you though. I mean, you were in, obviously you were in the music business for a lot of years. And how many years were you in the music? How did you get in the music?
I was in London Beat for 9 years, from 87 to 95. And prior to that, I was a recording studio engineer and music producer. I'm originally from England, as you can tell, but I moved to New York City in the early 80s. And that was when New York was dangerous and a kind of a crazy place. And I was...
So when did you stop drinking? How old were you?
This was before. Oh no, this was. I stopped drinking in 1979, a long time ago.
Wow. Okay.
So I was sober this whole time. In New York in the 80s, there was a lot of cocaine going on, and as I was sober, people would be like, "Come on, let's go, Palladium. We're gonna." I'm like, It's midnight, guys. I gotta go to sleep.
Exactly. I gotta get up in the morning.
I'm tired. Exactly. Yeah, I gotta get on with stuff.
I don't know how people do it, honestly. Like I want to go to bed at like 10:30 at night, and I want to get up at 6:30. I want to get my 8 hours. I want to feel great in the morning. I don't want to be hungover. I don't want to be partying all night long. I don't know how that works with some people.
Me too.
But what was it like being in the music business? Like, what kind of stresses, what kind of pressures, what kind of things go along with that business that maybe a lot of us outsiders, because I have no idea how it works, that we don't know about?
Yeah. Well, there are being in a band it's a very entrepreneurial process.
Okay.
To be a successful musician, to be in a successful band, you have to understand business and you have to be an entrepreneur. Mick Jagger famously went to the London School of Economics. The whole success of the Stones is because Mick is an amazing businessman.
That's great.
And there's often someone in a band who is driving it. And it's not always the lead singer. In fact, it's rarely not the lead singer. U2, just look up Larry. Just saying, he's the guy who drives.
He's the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. Yeah. It's not the front two guys. And so the success of a band is there's a lot of luck involved, a lot of luck. You got to be in the right place at the right time. And you got to have the ability, and blessedly, I can play guitar and studio stuff pretty good, and I'm a songwriter. So that brings you to the real success. Successful of a successful, it's all about the material.
Right.
It really is about the material. And so
were you a writer? I mean, did you write a song?
Yeah. I'm the main writer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really are a creative guy.
Mm-hmm.
And is there you know how to play everything pretty much? I mean, guitar, piano, you know how to play it all?
Yeah, well enough. Yeah, well enough. I'm a sort of a jack of all trades musically and a master of none musically. I mean, I got super well known as the guitarist in London Beat, and indeed I played all the stuff on the records. But my biggest hit, which was I've Been Thinking About You, has a one finger, one string, one pick guitar solo. Now, and I got really famous. I got loads of awards, Guitarist of the Year, and a couple of things for playing a one string, one finger guitar solo.
That is so awesome, man. So that was
I know. It's a funny old world. But the success of a band is, as I said, it's about understanding how the business works. And it's different then than it is now. I was signed to a major label. I was the driver. And what happened for me was I was in a band with these three amazing soul vocalists. They were African-American guys. I was living in London. They were actually in London, but they were African-American. And so we're really a two-piece band in a certain way, that there was me, the musician, and then these guys just being like a vocal group.
Okay.
And the stress on me as the foundation and the driver of the new material, and having to, after you've had the hits, it's even more difficult than before you had the hits, because now you're expected to come up with more hits, right?
Yeah.
And so in '94, I just need to do something different. I've had, I've been the BMI PRS Writer of the Year, which is the big gong. As where else do you go from there? I had a couple of #1 songs here in the States, 5 in many other countries.
Wow.
And I was like, I got to do something else. This is just driving me crazy. And so
what part of that was driving you crazy though? Because anybody outside looking in, they're like, what are you talking about, man? I mean, you're top of your game. You're the number one.
Yeah, I know.
Blah, blah, blah,
the constant travel.
Okay.
The travel.
So there you go.
The fact that the guy who is the writer in the band, which was me, then while I was touring the last album, I had to be writing the new album. And so that meant I never got any time out, because I'm either on stage or doing promotion for the last album. At the same time, I need to be in the hotel room writing the material for the next album. It just became just this.
Do you have kids?
I didn't have kids then.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, later on.
That was a little bit better,
Yeah.
But still, that's a lot of pressure, man. You got to hit song.
Yeah.
You got to write another one. Everybody's expecting you to do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
What do you think about the AI, man? Like, I'm sure AI is writing a lot of songs right now.
Yeah.
Is it any good? I mean, can you tell
now
if it's writing a song?
Yeah, I believe you can.
Yeah, okay.
We get into a somewhat human, somewhat spiritual vein by talking about this, and I'll tell you why. As a successful songwriter, you just have to disengage your brain and wait for the inspiration to come. And when I wrote Thinking About You and Better Love and Come Back and the other well-known London Beat songs, they were not written by committee. They were not written by scientific method. I just was like, I got a guitar and I just waited, and then the song just appeared. Now, That's a magical thing. And I've been blessed. I've sat with McCartney a few times and I asked him the same question. I said, how do you write a song, Paul? He goes, I don't know, I just look up there and I just wait, you know. And you talk to Phil Collins back in the day, you talk to any of these people, they will say that there's a spark of inspiration that has to come. There's a spark. Even today, like Taylor Swift, brilliant, absolutely. What a performer. And that you can sense that there's a pain. This is not written by committee. This is something that came out of her heart, her successful songs, all of them. Right. And so what happens with AI is AI generated art of all kinds knows about everything that has been done until right now. Actually, it's AI, it's actually a few months ago. And so what it cannot do by definition is look forward. Right. It can't lean into the zeitgeist of consciousness that we're all on right here, right now, and then feel where's you can't feel it, right? And so AI, by definition, is very, very impressive, but by definition can't, you know, Andy Warhol would never have been created by AI, you know, Joni Mitchell, or really Bjork, you know, talking about some artists, or The Cure back in the day. They did such a strange and crazy thing that no one had any idea that that was coming. And so AI always will deliver an interesting but safe option.
Right.
And a human is going to go, there's this thing. It's polka meets punk meets a stripper on a pole in New Orleans meets a tuba player and a old Chinese guy. That's a fantastic combination. And all of a sudden we're like, whoa, what on earth is that? Right? I'm just making that up, but that's how we humans think, you know. And so I think AI has absolute use. And the way I see it's already starting, AI really changing things is in ads. Advertising of any kind.
Yeah.
Right? You know, there was a Volvo commercial done recently that was done in 27 hours by one guy, just built the entire thing in AI, and it looks like a full-priced, you know, agency delivered Volvo commercial for a Volvo. Well, that's changing.
Scary, right? Scary. Well, yeah, I mean, they're making movies in front of screens now. You know, like look at you know, with the Star Wars one, they're just you know, creating all these backgrounds and they're just in a studio or making a movie. I mean, it's wild.
That's a different thing than AI, but
well, of course, but it's the technology, I guess.
Absolutely.
It's the technology that is creating something that we've never seen before, you know.
But here's what I am very excited about. In the same way that technology in the recording studio has changed and created entire new forms of music. Hip hop and EDM both came out of sampling, which is a sort of a tool in the studio where you can have someone in playing a piano, and then they go home, and now you can play those notes as the producer that the piano player just played. I don't need the piano player anymore.
Right.
And so hip hop in particular has derived from samples, and it's a living life force, the most important, musical genre that's come through completely brand new in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, wow. And so that came about through tech and interesting technology. So AI created music tools are just beginning to happen in the recording studio, and they are going to be able to create music we cannot even imagine now, with young kids who are today, 9, 10 years old. That, by the way, there's some astonishing 9 or 10-year-old musicians coming through. Wow. They will have tools under their fingers that can make things that we're not even going to be able to imagine. So I think there's a golden era of interesting music coming.
What advice would you give somebody that's trying to be in the music industry?
I get asked that quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Now, everything I've talked about is to do with AI and music and futures and tech and dance music and hip hop and so on. I predict there's going to be a renaissance of real live performance, human performance. I think that we humans are going to miss and it's kind of hardwired into us. Live performance, real, someone sitting playing with an acoustic guitar. There's no synth, there's nothing. It's just sing, work for it. And I think I'm already starting to see this with virtuoso young players. there are some phenomenal girls and boys. I mean, if you look on YouTube for like brilliant young guitarists, you'll find that there are some 9, 10-year-old girls who can play guitar like, what?
Really good.
If they were in the room, I'd be like, I'll play the chords, you play the lead.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, they're amazing. So there's a new generation of virtuoso musicians coming through, and they are all about playing live. Here's a prediction for you. If this comes true, this will be the place that you'll be able to say you heard it first. Barbershop doo-wop. Do 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 be
Really?
classic barbershop. Well, why? 4 voices, 5 voices, works for men and women, or men and women, just do the range of the voices.
Yeah.
And it's never really come back yet.
Right.
And so you can stand around a street corner singing bebop, doo-wop, excuse me, and or barbershop, and it is so great to hear when someone does it.
Oh,
we used to do it.
We all love it.
Right?
They do it at Disneyland.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, but there's a new generation going to come through writing new songs using that, those arrangements and singing. And you can't fake that because there's 4 mics on stage and let's see how you do, right? It's live.
I love it. I love it. And a lot of you said a lot of guys are over 40.
Yeah. In the Metal Men group, yeah. A lot of guys are over 40. Yeah. We're mostly over 40. Yeah.
And so what do you advise? I mean, I'm going to be turning 50, right? So in like 2 days, I'm going to be 50. What advice do you give men, that are maybe having that midlife crisis? And what?
Yeah,
I mean, and you see it. I'm sure you see it a lot.
Oh
right?
my God, constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, midlife crisis. Well, you got a couple of options. You can date a girl half your age and buy a red Corvette or a Ferrari if you've got money to waste. I don't recommend it. I won't. Trust me, it sounds like fun, but it will not make you happy.
Right.
Or you can come and join metal.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Metal up, man. Check it out. But being very serious about it for a second. What happens for many men as they get into their mid-late 40s is you've spent the last 25 years building a family, being the provider.
Right.
You've been putting your own wants and needs secondary to, especially if you've got 3 teenage kids who are now at college. Your whole identity has been, I'm a VP of XYZ at this organization, or I run my own business, whatever it is. And now I'm all about the kids, getting the kids through. Now they're in college and now they're gone. What happens is, I see this a lot, is you realize that the woman that you're married to is no longer the woman you were married to, and you're no longer the same guy that she married.
Sure.
So you've got to lean in and work on your relationship with your wife.
That's it.
Or happens a lot, you realize we're just not compatible anymore.
Right.
So now you've got a real midlife crisis. You're no longer married because you've been with a wife for 20 years. She's going to be on full alimony. She gets to keep the entire house. You've got everything you're going. And now you're living in a small apartment on your own, single, at 49.
Right.
Now what? Right. The dating world is very different than it used to be. You're 49.
Sure.
You've lost your skills in dating. You go on a few online sites and it's a complete zoo. It's a mess. And I've seen this a lot. And at that stage, this is where you need brothers like you, right, Daniel, and myself. Right. You need guys who you can be like, okay, fella, I got 10 years on you. I went through that 10 years ago. There is a light on the other side. But the first thing you got to do is be still. Stop trying to do stuff. Just calm down. That's the main advice I give a brother who's just going through this. Just relax for a second and get off the dating. Just like, come out. Let's go hiking.
That's it.
Right. Come out with the guys. No, we're not going to go to Vegas and do the stripper thing. Nope, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to hang out. We're going to go on vacation and we're going to learn about being still, and we're going to do something we've never done. Let's try windsurfing. Let's try, something physical. And once a guy has adjusted to the new normal, like I'm now single, my kids are in college, my wife's got everything I had, it's very liberating.
Yeah.
So now you can start thinking about what's important to you. You've done your bit for your kids. What's important to you? What are you interested in? And many guys have a big career change at that point. I'm like, you know, I really don't like being a VP of media at some business, or I'm really, you know, I inherited the family business from my dad, but I just don't like running a restaurant. That's not what I'm interested in. And so I can understand how guys who are in that position really are interested in what you're doing, which is, okay, I'm still young, I'm 50, and how do I create a new, you know, if you're divorced now, your money is your own, right? Generally, right? So once that's done, you've moved on to that. And so now, how do I set myself up so that I can be on the beach with an income stream? Right. Right.
Yeah, I think you just, I don't know how much you looked me up, but you just described a lot of my situation that I went through over the last 4 or 5 years.
I wasn't doing that on purpose. I was just thinking out loud.
No. I just see it as something that is, you know, it's happened so many times. That's why you can just talk about it in generality, and you're like, okay, and I'm just saying that, you know, I've been through it, so I just got through it. I'm actually, you know, everything you just described is actually just, I went through it. So, but yeah,
well, I feel you, brother.
You're so right. And I will say it would have been even better. I will say that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, had I had a group of brothers,
right,
that had nothing to do, because one of the things that's interesting about my business is that I am you know, I mean, I've been in my company for, you know, we're a publicly traded, you know, 150,000 people in our company. So everybody knows me. I'm like little celebrity within this little group of people. Right. And so you're almost like put up on a pedestal.
Right.
Then when you're having challenges, you don't really want to talk about them necessarily. So
you talk to.
So you have a brotherhood of people, of guys that you could go to and go, and they don't care about your business. You're not trying to sell them anything. They're not trying to sell you anything. You're just having a conversation with a bunch of dudes, you know? And I think that, you know, I think all men need that at some point in their life, you know? And
we run an event here at Metal, which is an internal event called the Foundry. And we've been doing it for 7 years. The reason I'm able to talk about this is a confidential space, and a lot of men's group work works in the same way. Foundry is different, and the reason why here's how a lot of men's group work. If you've ever done this, you get 12, 13, 15 guys, you're sitting around in a circle, you do a share, everybody does, here's what's going on, and then the guys in the group who've got the most messed up stuff get the attention of the group, right?
Right.
You get together every week, and there's a couple of you know, vets who were in the Gulf the first time around, and someone else whose daughter's just committed suicide. It's just awful stuff. And what happens is, as a group, you lean in and help and support the guys who've got the worst stuff going on.
Right.
If you do that every week for a few months, and what's happening to you is your wife is just constantly mean to you.
Right.
She's constantly mean to you.
Yeah.
It's not really in the same league as someone whose daughter's just sold, or, you know, someone who's got PTSD. So what we did in Metal was we created this system called the Foundry, which is a timed system of sharing, and it's heavily and carefully moderated. And so you get a certain number of minutes, you get the full attention of the team. It's a process that works really well for talking about what's top of mind in a confidential space.
Yeah.
And if we'd have been around for 4 years, 4 years ago with you, you would have been it. You said something that really had me interested, Daniel, and as you said, because you're at the place that you are in your business, there's very few people that you can talk to without an agenda.
Right.
Their agenda, not your agenda.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're with other guys like Nolan Bushnell, who invented the video game, he's 82 years old. He's a metal man and a close friend of mine.
Great guy.
I've done, I mean, I didn't invent the video game, but I've had a successful, you know, career. And so when I talk to Nolan, the wisdom that he has, life wisdom, you know, it's awesome. Fantastic. And if I'm having a problem, I'll reach out to other guys that I met through the metal group and say, you know, one of my co-founders wants to sue me, or I've got an HR problem with XYZ, or my wife is just mean to me all the time.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Well, that's a whole other question about how you deal with it, but often just talking about it helps.
Yeah, it's I think the key word right there is the wisdom, because I think that sometimes when you're going through challenges and you're having problems, wherever you're at in your life, whatever the problem is, you're so into it, right? And sometimes you can't, it's that outside looking in. Sometimes it says, hey, look, have you processed it like this? Have you thought about it like this? Right. Have you ever, did you realize maybe that you're the issue? You know what I mean? Maybe it's what you're doing, right? I mean, maybe it's not so much that she's the problem or he's the problem or whatever. So I think that, man, when you get around a bunch of people that have wisdom, this is when your whole life can change. And I got lucky. I got lucky in business. I mean, maybe the relationship part, maybe I could have used a few brothers back then. Maybe things would have been different. I don't know. But I can say that I highly recommend Metal. I mean, Kin is awesome. Getting to know you is awesome.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
And I've been very fortunate to meet a bunch of really great guys. And so as we kind of, get ready to close this out here, I want you to talk to me about, what if you were to give some advice to your younger self, maybe spend a couple of minutes and share with me, because my son is 22 years old and he'll be watching this. And, obviously you've had your share of pretty big success, and I'm sure you've had some challenges too. And you can throw in any of your challenges as well as you close us out here. And, but I really want you to, even if you're talking to a young man or anybody that might be going through some stuff, what's some advice that you would give them?
I can tell you right off the bat something that is not ever thought or talked about, certainly for our generation, and that is your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your father, and your relationship with your mother, particularly in the younger years, like 0 to 7, and then in your teenage years, has an extraordinary impact on the way that you act and think and the way your emotions work. And you are not independent of that. So the small things that happened every day when you were growing up all add up. If your father had an attitude about something, it will be there in the back of your mind. If your mother was mean to your dad all the time, you'll have a kind of a slightly skewed version of how you think women should be. And you will likely make bad choices of girlfriends and someone to marry because of the hidden hand on that steering wheel. And so my advice, and I wish I'd had this advice myself at the age of 22, was get into some therapy, develop a really good relationship with someone who can help unpack some of that in your 20s. I did that later on in my 40s. And everything changed. I stopped making some, how about this? We've all got friends who date a certain type of girl, and it's every time it's another one. The new one is worse than the old one. And then they go, no, I've found the one. And you're like, oh my goodness, bro, this one's even worse than the last one. And they're just like caught in a pattern. And that has an extraordinary impact on how your life works out. So that will be the single thing. The second thing that's the personal, right? Is your professional. You need to have someone in your life who's not your dad. In a traditional environment, this is your godfather. It could be an uncle. It could be someone who's taken you under the wing to help you here. Someone who loves you, who is not going to run off. Someone who can give you a career advice while you're in your 20s. And I had no one. I did later on, by the time I got into my 30s, but I'd already had a ton of success by then. And it was a big shock to find out a lot of the ways I was being in business, a lot of the things I was assuming were completely wrong. Right. So they're both part of personal and professional development. That's what I would have done differently.
See, that to me is wisdom, man. And this is why being a part of a group of men is so incredibly important to all of us, by the way. And by the way, I'm big on longevity. You know, I'm going to live past 120. So like, that's my, I work on myself. I work on my health. I work on my body. I work on, a lot of different things. And I will say that, I mean, I feel like part of the reason why people live longer, which all of us want to live a long life or good, healthy, long life, is social. A lot of people don't talk about it. Social aspect of your life. I mean, they talk about all the blue zones, right? I mean, it's a community of people that, that they trust each other and they're around each other and they rub elbows, with people often. And I think that the more, I feel very lucky just even doing this show. I mean, I've had Wealth on the Beach podcast since 2018, I think. It might be 5-6 years or something like that. Interviewed 300 people or something like that. And I feel so blessed that I get to speak to people like you and get to be
back at you
like you. Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel blessed. I mean, I'm one of the luckiest people in the world because I get all these great conversations with really amazing people. And that's one of my goals in life is to build better relationships with great people. And I feel lucky for that. So thank you so much, Will, for hanging with me, man. And this has been fun. And I hope that everybody out there, if you could do me a big favor and just because everybody that's watching this right now, they're going to follow you on Instagram. Give us your Instagram, give us your website, give us your, talk about the book again and everything. Just let us know how to connect with you. Because, somebody like you, people want to know people like you. They want to maybe ask you a couple of questions or something, write you a DM or something. Like people want to know people like you. So tell us how to connect, man.
Metal.men or Metal Men. You'll find us on all of the socials. That's how to find out about that. LinkedIn, good way to reach me. Look me up, Will Henshall. And, I am always happy to talk to interesting people. That's curious. Here we go. We're curious again.
That's it.
And then I'm like, I met someone the other day who said, bats. I'm like, what about bats? He said, they eat bugs. Like, yeah. He goes, there's a relationship to bats and mosquitoes. And I was like, really? He said, you can go onto Amazon. This is a completely random conversation. You can go onto Amazon and you can look at bat house. And if you put a bat house in your yard, you'll get bats and it'll cut down the mosquitoes in your yard. I'm like, oh, great.
Oh, wow.
That's duh. Of course. Then it turns out there are some places in some cities, just for normal biological reasons, don't have bats. So I've got a bat house with no bats in it.
Oh,
It's to do with the trees, the weather, the da-da-da. If I was to go 3 miles over there, there's loads of bats.
Well, Batman didn't get bit by mosquitoes. I just got back from Bali. And I swear to you, man, I was like, it's like my legs were, pieces of turkey for them. They were just all day long, man. I mean, but I tell everybody that, they bite me because I'm just a sweet guy.
There you go.
Super sweet. They just like it, like the taste of me. So thank you again, Will, for hanging with me, man. Looking forward to connecting again in the future. Hopefully we could spend some time. And with everybody out there, please do me a huge favor and connect with Will, reach out on his LinkedIn. And just say hello, even if it's just like, hey, Will, thanks for coming on the show. We loved your wisdom. We loved your advice. We loved your stories. And, and try to make a new friend. I'm always trying to make new friends. That's one of my intentions in life is, you can't have too many, great people in your life. And so with that said, everybody continue to dream bigger than ever, get after it. But most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We will see you at the top.